Howdy. General Trouble coming at you right here from my office. Since I've done other videos last week, I haven't really done many this week, been too busy. I've kind of rearranged things in here. So as time progresses and you see more videos coming out, you'll see how my office is kind of changing. There was a table that was up on our porch not being used. I brought it in here, cleaned it up, and it's going to work perfectly for setting up my iPad and doing devotional videos and other things. So, sometimes I go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I pick a devotional and I do it. So I thought right here and now we'll do a closer walk devotional. This was written by Steve Troxel. I don't know who Steve Troxel is, but there are 4 of these devotionals. If you've never seen one of these videos before, each one has 3 months in it, which make up the year. And today we're on day 17, and this one's called Give Him All the Glory. And for a Bible reference, you want to turn over to Genesis 41, referring to Joseph and his dreams. Let's read the first 20 verses in Genesis 41. Ask yourself this question: when was the last time you actually read Genesis 41? It's been quite a while for me, so I like jumping around. I like some of these devotionals that take us to parts of the Bible that never get read. You know, I've never had one yet. I've never seen anybody preach or teach on Philemon, the book of Philemon. Isn't that sad? A book in the Bible that is never touched. Never heard it referenced in my whole life. Who knows? Maybe I'll just do a video purposely in the book of Philemon. It's an epistle written to the church people. What are some of your favorite books in the Bible? I love Genesis because it's the beginning and it's got so many stories, so many lessons. It's very rich with details and direction from God. It's good stuff. Of course, the whole Bible is, but we all have our favorites. And Genesis in the beginning is one of them. Shouts out to Brother Benjamin, Grayson, Charlie, Melvin, Brother Don in Texas, Jeff in Oregon, Sisters Lisa, Tabitha, Mona, Opal, Trista, Michelle, Sister Faye, Sister Valerie, and who else we got out there? Sister Deborah, if you're watching, God bless. All right, let's do this. Give Him all the glory. Does God get any glory in your life? Is there anything that you're doing in your life, you're just doing it for His glory and not for yourself? That's a hard one because a lot of times we like to try to do it for God, but sometimes we do it for ourselves. And I'm not the judge, God is. So if you know that you're doing things just to be seen instead of for God's glory, you might want to pray about that. All right, let's go. Sometimes I get mixed up whether I want to read first in the devotional and then go to the Bible verses, but I like to get the foundation of it first. This is one of my used MEV Bibles. It's for some reason got this coloring on it. I don't know, but it's nice and big print, and I don't even have to use my glasses for this. Pharaoh's dreams. So I guess it wasn't Joseph's dreams, it was Pharaoh's dreams, and we know that Joseph interpreted them. I had forgotten, it's been a while. Verse 1, after 2 whole years, Pharaoh had a dream that he was standing by the Nile. That's the Nile River in Egypt. 7 fine-looking and fattened cows suddenly came up out of the river, and they grazed in the meadow. Then 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, ugly and gaunt, and stood by the other cows on the river bank. I know what this dream means. Do you? Have you read it before? The ugly and gaunt cows ate up the 7 fine-looking and fattened cows. Then Pharaoh awoke. He slept and dreamed a second time. 7 ears of grain suddenly came up on one stalk, plump and good. Then 7 thin ears, scorched by the east wind, sprang up after them. The 7 thin ears devoured the 7 plump and full ears. Then Pharaoh awoke and realized it was a dream. In the morning, his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer spoke to Pharaoh, saying, "Today I remember my offenses." Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me in confinement in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we had a dream in the same night, he and I. We, each of us, dreamed according to the interpretation of his own dream. A young Hebrew man was with us there, a servant to the captain of the guard. We told him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. And that was Joseph, who was sold by his brothers into slavery. See how family can do you? Your own blood, your own flesh and blood, your family can do you that way. It happened in the Bible, it happens to us. Your own family members can throw you under the bus. That's why, in my opinion, family is not only people who are blood. There are a lot of people who are blood to me who are not my family. I don't consider them family. And of course, there are probably some that think the same about me, but that's just their demons. Because when you truly sell out to Jesus, the enemy hates it. Even Jesus' own brothers thought he was crazy. Don't believe me? Go read it in the Gospels. I have a video on that. It's called Never Mind Them. All right, so Joseph's story was very interesting. He was done wrong by his own flesh and blood, but God turned it around. Romans 8:28. To each man he interpreted according to his own dream. It happened just as he interpreted. He restored me to my position, and the baker was hanged. So Pharaoh sent and called for Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. He shaved himself, changed his clothes, and came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that you can understand a dream to interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream I stood on the bank of the Nile, and suddenly there came up out of the river 7 cows, fattened and fine-looking, and they grazed in the reeds. Then 7 other cows came up after them, poor and very ugly and gaunt. I have never seen such ugliness in all the land of Egypt. And the gaunt and ugly cows ate up the first 7 fat cows. Let's go on. Verse 21. And when they had eaten them up, no one would have known that they had eaten them, for they were still as ugly as before. Then I awoke. I also saw in my dream 7 ears of grain, full and good, suddenly come up on one stalk. Then 7 ears, thin and scorched by the east wind, sprang up after them, and the thin ears swallowed the 7 good ears. So I told this to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 gaunt and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears, scorched by the east wind, will be 7 years of famine. Now, go finish it yourself if you want to know how it ends up. But God told Pharaoh to prepare for a famine. I consider myself a prepper, not a hardcore one, because I don't have the money to do it. But I do know that hard times are upon us and harder times are coming. And so we do try to store up a little bit of something. And a lot of people say, well, God's going to take care of us, so we don't have to worry about it. That is true. For the people who can't store up for themselves, God will take care of you. But for the people that God says, do this and prepare, you must prepare, because you were warned. So you can't go all the way to the right or all the way to the left. You can't say everybody needs to store up, and then you can't be on the other side saying nobody needs to do it, God has it. If God tells you what to do, you obey him. He has his reasons. Now, without getting off into that rabbit trail, let's take a look. Give him all the glory. Joseph had some difficult times in his early years. His brothers tried to kill him and then sold him to the Midianites. The Midianites, in turn, sold him as a slave to Potiphar, who was one of Pharaoh's officials. Joseph was then falsely accused by Potiphar's wife and thrown in prison, where he sat for several years. Things definitely weren't going very well. Don't forget that the wife of Potiphar tried to jump Joseph's bones, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so she tore her clothing and claimed that he tried to rape her. Falsely accused, thrown into prison. It happens. Then one day Joseph got his opportunity to make a change. Pharaoh had some dreams that bothered him greatly, but when he sent for the wise men of Egypt, no one could help him. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. Genesis 41, verse 8. Pharaoh was told of a young Hebrew slave who was imprisoned, but had demonstrated a unique ability to interpret dreams. Pharaoh quickly summoned Joseph from the dungeon. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Genesis 41, verse 15. Wow, this was Joseph's big chance. His opportunity to take matters into his own hands and shape his circumstances. Remember, it's because God allowed this. Apply this to your own life as we read, okay? He certainly deserved a break. After all, doesn't God help those who help themselves? He does, but then there are a lot of people who can't help themselves, but God still helps them anyway. Unfortunately, this is one of the biggest misquotes of the Bible and a shameful misrepresentation of God. It's much more accurate to say God will faithfully work our circumstances to the good as we diligently seek Him and love Him with all our heart and faithfully follow where He leads. Joseph could have used this opportunity to bring glory and honor to himself, but he had learned the important lesson that all things come from God and should be used to glorify His name. In Genesis 41:16 it says, I cannot do it. Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he deserves. Joseph had been given a wonderful gift, but this gift would only produce fruit as God worked through Joseph's life. This was the same lesson Paul tried to teach the church in Corinth. What do you have that you did not receive? In other words, what do you possess? What do you have that wasn't first given to you by God? And I want to address the people who operate in spiritual gifts or ministries, and they make it all about them. They think that they've earned it. They think they can build up ministries and a name for themselves, claiming that it's bringing glory to God, when really it's just glory to me. You know, to me be the glory, not to God be the glory. There's lots of them out there. They pretend to be humble. They pretend to be working for God, but really they're building their own empires. And a lot of them can be seen on TV. What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast as though you did not? 1 Corinthians 4:7. It's by God's grace we accomplish anything. Apart from me, you can do nothing. John 15:5. That's what Jesus said. It's by His grace we have talents and abilities. It's by His grace we obtain direction and motivation. In fact, it's by His grace we take our next breath. If God provides all the tools, He certainly deserves all the praise. Let's never miss an opportunity to use the gifts God has provided. And when our lives produce fruit, let's never miss an opportunity to give Him all the glory. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Good reminder for us. It's for the glory of God, not for the glory of us. Have a blessed day, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Share it around. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Send prayers our way because our ministry needs it. God bless you guys. Check that 3-piece, and we'll see you next time.